Hi, I'm Dave Wurzel, and you're watching PHTV4. And today we are at Wild Birds Unlimited in Palos Park. We are talking with Mel Tracy, who co-owns it with his wife Laura. Mel, thank you for taking a little bit of time out to.
Thanks for coming by. Yeah.
Well, this topic today we're going to talk about birding indirectly. Okay,
Right.
I'm going to hit you with some questions here. It's that time of season. There's some fall planting has gone on, or maybe a little still is going on. My wife and I, oddly enough, I don't know if this makes us type A, we're already talking about, well, what might we do in the spring in certain areas? And then the issue came up, we know a lot of this can affect pollinators, butterflies, bees, we talk about that all the time.
Right.
My question is, what about birds? Birds are part of this package too, they're part of that ecosystem. Can we talk about that first? Does that, what we plant in terms of plants or trees, affect birding or birds, and how?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really kind of like an evolving thing that we're just coming across right now. We didn't really understand. Well, everybody's always into planting the natives, but we're seeing now like a study that was done through Doug Ptolemy, who's written a couple of great books. And basically it comes down to our native birds, like our little chickadees, and that's what the study first focused on, was they can't reproduce unless about 60% of the landscape is covered in native plants.
Wow.
And yeah, right. And it's like, well, why is that? And so it turns out that there's butterflies and moths and these guys, they all lay their eggs and then they develop into the little caterpillars. And a chickadee, in order to have one brood, needs about 6,000 to 9,000 of these caterpillars. Okay, so and it's kind of hard, to understand why, but through the evolutionary process, these butterflies and these moths, they can't just lay their eggs on any plant. They've and we've seen it with the monarchs. And, we all know about the milkweed. But each of these butterflies, each of these species has kind of picked a plant and kind of evolved so that if you bring in a plant from Asia, that doesn't help any of the native butterflies, any of the native moths. They can't lay their eggs. There's no food for the babies. So it's kind of like it kind of works up the system that way.
Okay, so it impacts the bird population.
Oh, yeah.
Through the circle, right?
Yes, exactly, right.
Are there other birds affected by this, do you know, or?
For the most part, it's our native birds.
Any native bird.
Yeah, it's just most of our native birds. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. There's a couple birds, our goldfinches, for instance. They've evolved to eat seed, and so their babies can eat seed. They're one of the only birds that can do that. Almost all the rest of the birds, even like cardinals with those big, strong beaks, their cardinal babies can't eat seeds. They have to be fed these really squishy, inchworms we used to see all the time when we were kids.
So I guess the question I want to ask related to that then is, so native plants, native trees are going to aid, obviously, the native ecosystem, which is going to impact the bird population.
Right.
Right. Okay. So with that in mind, then we talked about. I know about milkweed and butterflies. Are there certain other plants or trees that we should consider then that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So one of the resources out there is this the National Wildlife Foundation, and they have it's nwf.org, and they have this kind of plant finder guide. And basically, let's say you're looking for just a plant. You want to plant a couple of plants in your backyard. You can look up a plant and it'll show you if it maybe has 25 or 50 or 75 different types of insects that, moths or butterflies that can use that plant. And some of these plants only have 2 or 3. And it turns out that oak trees, and I'm not saying everybody should go around planting a million oaks and tearing down all what you have, but it turns out oak trees can get about 500 different species. So they are like and it just turns out where we're at, and we have great birding in Palos, right? And part of the reason we have such great birds and birding in Palos,
the oak trees,
all the oak trees in these surrounding woodlands that people had the vision years ago to set aside.
The idea that I'm just picturing myself or my wife and I or other people visiting the garden center, going for the walk. Oh, that's a good-looking tree, or that's a good plant.
Yeah.
There actually probably should be another thought process involved in making that decision.
Absolutely. I mean, there was this kind of push years ago to put neonicotinoids, they called them, into the plants. And basically you treat the seed and the poison kind of grows through the plant. Well, any bug that landed on that plant, whether it was a good bug or bad bug, is getting killed by it. And so that was really having a bad effect. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, so when you're looking for plants, you want to try to stay away from, things that have been hybridized or things that are not native.
Okay.
So there's so many opportunities around for native plant sales, and there are different greenhouses that just strictly do natives.
Okay. Related to that, maybe this is getting too picky then. What about location around the house or around the property, whether you live in a condo, a townhouse, a home, you have a piece of property here. Does it matter where that plant is in relationship to the house, the garage,
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I mean, Laura and I, for us, this started a couple of years ago, and it was in the kind of fall, and we just like, hey, let's just sit down and map out what to do over the winter. And we drew up a little plan. The one thing is, I wouldn't say I'm going to put all these up against my neighbor's property, right? So we're gonna kind of find a space where we can work them in, and you want to be able to take some of those high impact, one of those ones that's going to maybe bring in 75 different species. You want some of those high impact ones in there, but you also want your neighbors to be happy and want your neighbors to enjoy these. So you're going to get a couple of more in there that are maybe they don't have as high of an impact, but they have a high impact for visual. Right? And then, hummingbirds don't necessarily need those insects, but maybe some plants where the hummingbirds can feed. And again, like you were mentioning about pollinators, let's get some plants in there that can also help that pollinators. And, you're going to have to think about it a little bit. It's a little bit of a project. It's kind of fun. Right. But you got to think about where's the sun going to come, because you want your lower plants to be able to get the sun, and then, medium-sized plants and larger plants.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there, but I see if you want to, that could be that fun summer or the winter thing, right? You're inside, it's snowing outside. How about if we, work on the map a little bit?
Yeah, for sure.
I guess maybe last question then related. Any other advice about people? It sounds like mapping is a good idea. Planning, National Wildlife Foundation. Check the website for the Plant Finder.
Yep, NWF.
Okay.
Right.
Any other advice you want to give people in terms of planning out native plants, trees, to help attract the right birds or feed them? Right?
Well, I mean, just to get kind of specific, I know every year that Moraine Valley does a native plant sale. So that right there, you can go there.
I think Lake Catherine has one.
Lake
too.
Catherine has one,
Yes,
yeah. So,
okay.
But in terms of just getting some information, Doug Ptolemy, he's a professor, a doctorate, and he's restored some of his property, and he has 3 different books. One's all about oaks. It's great, takes you through the season, what's happening with the oaks. Another one is kind of like, what I really like is, he talks about how much of private land we own collectively, everybody together, and how many times, like, we'd be bigger than all the national parks if we all kind of just put a little of our own land aside. And so it's kind of like build our own national park, but in our yards.
Right.
And I keep saying yards. There's a lot of people out there who don't have anything much bigger than a balcony, but you can put out a couple of planters and some pots.
You're part of the ecosystem for sure.
Absolutely. And to see like a hummingbird come up to your your bee balm or something, that's just so fun.
Okay.
But yeah, and I like the idea of just kind of all of us pitching in to help all these birds, these butterflies.
I like it.
Yeah.
Grassroots movement.
It's a grassroots movement, right? Exactly, yeah.
Let's create our own national park.
Exactly,
right.
yeah.
Mel, thank you very much. Good information as usual, and something I think I'm going to enjoy planning over the winter.
All right. Thanks so much for coming out, man.
Oh, it's good. I'm Dave Worsley. I've been watching PHTV4, and we've been at Wild Birds Unlimited talking with owner Mel Tracy about native plants and trees for birding and part of that ecosystem. Thank you for watching.